Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to the MLS Power Ranking Show for Week 8. I'm Andrew Wiebe, as always, with Matt Doyle and a bevy of special guests to walk you through what's going on in Major League Soccer, or at least from our perspective, what the 10 most interesting teams are. You can get the full power rankings at MLSsoccer.com and on the MLS app from 28 to 1. You can yell at whoever you want to yell about it on Twitter. I know that's what you do anyway. We're live on Twitter Spaces now, but I know it can be difficult for folks to listen to this show live. So if you want to listen to it on demand, MLS Today podcast feed is your destination. MLS Today, hosted by David Goss every single day at 11 Eastern on Twitter Spaces, is also uploaded to that channel, as well as MLS After Dark on Saturdays and Sundays if you need a fix between Extra Time and the Call-Up, which you should also subscribe to and listen to. And if you listen to all of that, my God, you are overloading on MLS, and we love you for it.
You're our kind of fan, man. Paying our salaries. I love it.
Exactly. I'm sitting down here in my soccer cave just applauding you at every opportunity. Let's start with number 28 this week, Vancouver Whitecaps sitting down in Spoon territory. We were talking to AFTN Soccer's own Michael McCall. Michael, down a spot. That's what happens when San Jose wins. Things are not as they were, let's say, last year late on in Vancouver. What's going on with the Whitecaps from your point of view?
Oh, so much that is going on right now. I mean, you can put a lot of this down to the injuries that the team have, because they are missing 5, 6, who you would call starters. Vanni Sartini wouldn't, but that's a whole other issue we might get to. But they're just not playing as a team. Very worrying things coming from Vanni after the game on Saturday, where he said they basically have to reevaluate everything, and that players are basically not following the game plan once they go on the pitch. So then you have to ask, well, who's responsible for that? The players, the coach, both of them. A lot of issues at the team right now.
When he says not following the game, or he implies not following the game plan, did he provide specifics? Like, less about naming names and more about, like, actually tactically, this is what we're trying to do here, and here's where it didn't work out. Did he go into that level of detail with you guys?
He went into a little bit. I wasn't able to do the post-game because I was heading out to a local game. So listening back, there's certainly a lot of things that I want to raise with him this week when we do our usual midweek chat. But he has talked about the fact that the aggression that he's wanting to see from the team is not there. They're not allowing the pressure forward that they're trying to bring. The formation they've got, they're trying to overlap and have an extra man in attack that they didn't have last year. So he's tweaked the formation a little bit to do that. But instead, you've got the players going forward, then they're not defending. And there's a huge gap in the midfield, and the defenders are being hung out to dry. And he spoke about allowing players to basically run 50 yards unchecked. And that's been a big issue with a few of the goals that they've given up of late.
One of the things that I've noticed, and it's showing up in the underlying numbers as well, and I know it's a point of discussion among fans for a while, is that, like, Rusty Tybert had, I thought, a very good end of the season under Vanni Sartini last year. He seemed to rediscover some level of aggression with passing, just progressing the ball forward, getting those wing backs into positions, into spots where they could use their attacking chops. Because, like we've seen, this Vanni Sartini wants his wing backs to be, like, incredibly attacking, and that, you know, the gamble you're making there is that they will get the ball in good spots and put the opposing team under so much pressure that it's worth the defensive shortcomings that they have. And Tybert has not been able to progress the ball like that this year. Like, I've been looking at his pass maps. He is just habitually playing side to side or backwards, and it is hanging everyone out to dry, and it's really hard to miss. Is that sort of the same thing that you're seeing from that central midfield in 2022?
Absolutely. And the thing with Russell Tybert, well, a couple of things. First of all, he has a reputation for being the pass-back king. That's what his game is known for. And in this system, it's not what the team needs, and it isn't going to work. But to be brutally honest, if you're 12 years into your MLS era and Russell Tybert is still your starting central midfielder, then you see the problems with this team. You look at other teams around the league, you look at guys that they've got in the middle of the park, even number sixes going forward box to box. These are players that Vancouver just simply does not have. And Russell Tybert's a player that isn't even in the mix for the national team, but yet the Whitecaps seem so reliant on him just now. And part of that is injuries, because if it was a full-strength team and you've got a new guy coming in, Kubas, that should be here hopefully imminently, then he's not going to be around the starting lineup. But right now, he's just not what the team is needing.
All right, give me an idea here, Michael, of how they can rectify this, right the ship. I mean, look, last year looked like a disaster until it didn't. Things in MLS can change quickly. You did mention Kubas coming in. What injury timelines are close to being resolved to get some difference makers back? And what does Kubas need to bring to this team to help them, I don't know, get out of the basement?
Well, time-wise for injuries, it is hard to say at the moment because, like, you've got Kyle Alexandre, who was injured last year, wasn't fit, wasn't up to game fitness, was starting to get there, broke his hand, but that seems to have ruled him out for 8 weeks. And you've seen players in the league playing with broken hands with casts on, so that's a strange one. So he's probably still 6 to 8 weeks away. Eric Godoy, some of us don't even feel he exists anymore, that he might just be a figment of our imagination because he's just constantly injured. He got a run out with the WFC2 team. He is meant to be getting a run out with them this weekend as well. So hopefully he will be good to go. He will shore up the defence. He needs to be back there. Him and Blackman together, I think, would be a great defensive partnership. But a key to turning this around is Vanni Sartini has to move away from three at the back. And he's stubbornly refusing to do that. This is not a team that has the players that can play that system. The wing-back option is a great idea, but I don't know that they have the players that can do this to the level that he needs. Four at the back has to return. It would be the only way to really shore things up defensively. I'm hoping that is one of the things that he has talked about when he said he's going to reevaluate everything over the next 2 weeks. The good aspect is they've got a free week now with Seattle being in the Champions League. They have to work on this because there's 3 home games coming up and these loom massive because they're not taking points on the road. If they don't take points at home, then they're already 8 points adrift of the playoff line by the end of May, looking at 2 tough away trips in there as well. They could be out of the Canadian Championship. They could be well cut adrift in MLS. And then it's really hard to see where the team and Vanni Sartini go from that.
Oh God! After the Andiamo era of Vanni Sartini, that now seems short-lived. That's tough listening there, Michael. And I'm sure frustrating at times or interesting on the flip side to cover. Give me just a little bit of hope. Is there some place to find hope for this club?
Well, in MLS, maybe not so much. WFC2, MLS Next Pro, a lot of exciting talent coming through there. They're top of the Pacific Division just now. They're an absolute joy to watch. And I know it's an innovative league, MLS Next Pro, but that team seems to be going with the innovation of actually having 3 centre-backs that can defend, which might be something that the MLS team do want to have a little look at. But there is a few guys. There's been a couple of call-ups. Ali Ahmed made his MLS debut on Saturday in Austin. He should get an MLS deal soon. There's a few others in that team that will. This could be a season that they just write off in terms of getting to the playoffs and they just play the kids, they develop the kids, and there is a lot of young talent there. If you're looking for hope from this MLS squad, they need to make moves. They need to move Lucas Cavallini on, get a striker in that can score. If he could score as many goals as he picks up yellow cards, that would help. They also need to get Brian White up and running again. Last year was such an outlier for him, and everyone up here thought, can he do it again? Can he keep those numbers up? He needs a lot of help just now. Ryan Gauld, if they can get him back to playing how it was last year. I know Matt said there's a good team here. It's maybe needing a few tweaks, maybe some different coaching. There's a good starting 11 there, but Vanni Sartini sees this more as a group of 22 and not a group of set starters. So if he can adapt, there could be some hope.
There's a lot of ifs there, but has been a joy here to have you, Michael, to get us started here on this Tuesday. Go check out AFTN Canada on Twitter. All their coverage of the Whitecaps Doing it the longest, doing it the best there in BC. Thank you, Michael. All right, let's keep it rolling from number 28 to number 25 in these power rankings. DC United. Pablo Mauro, what's up, man? How you doing? We're doing fine. Tell us about this transition from the inside, from Hernan Losada now to Chad Ashton, and what it meant in their first match. A win against what would have been an impressive opponent last year, but not so much this year in the rest.
Yeah, first of all, I want to remind everybody that the best game to play during these Twitter Spaces kind of meetups is to scroll through the listeners and find people without avatars and try and figure out which MLS GM's burner account it is. So I see you. Anyways, by all accounts, a good performance, right? I mean, I think it's interesting to me. I think DC are in like a really sort of unique space right now because certainly, based on my reporting and everybody else's, Losada's dismissal was sort of more a personality thing than a tactics thing. They certainly liked his tactics. They liked the way that he had DC playing. It was probably a relief to a lot of DC fans to hear Chad Ashton this week ahead of the game say, look, we want to keep this sort of the high press of kind of forward thinking, same formation, etc. And they did do that. So yeah, it was a relief. It is fascinating to me. It's like, I don't know, I'm reminded of it's like being in a relationship with somebody and dumping them and saying like, look, we just don't work, but I do like a lot of the changes you've made in my life and I was a mess. So I will continue doing that, but we can't date anymore. Sounds like that's what they do with Losada. I don't know.
Pablo, it actually sounds like he was fired for being kind of an a-hole. Have you ever been fired for being an a-hole?
I mean, I don't think you believe this. I have never been fired.
Wow.
In my entire this is, I mean, Matt, you're somebody who knows me personally, so I know this is probably unbelievable to you. But
to be fair, Pablo, back in the day when I was your editor, there were people that asked if we could fire you. So,
team ever specifically asked for me to be fired? Yes, that has happened. But y'all didn't even fire me. So there you go. Point proven.
We look at donuts in a parking lot in a different way. It just so happens that I like to imagine a Corvette doing quasi illegal things in parking lots. Where do they go from here? Like, Chad Ashton's in, the players seem happy about this. The result is good, and Taxi Fontas seems good. So they have the tactics they want to play. They have the personnel that should fit that over the course of the last 3 transfer windows or so. Now what?
Yeah, I mean, and plus they got Gareth Bale, right? That's actually going to happen. So, anyways, Taxi is an interesting one. I mean, I heard from the second he arrived, was hearing good things about him from DC players out of training. What I'd say unnamed person associated with DC's front staff. I think their exact words were, "He's the real deal," unlike Edison. Right, Flores obviously a player who's failed to produce for them forever. So yeah. I mean, I think obviously if they can look, man. Here's my deal. Every single team that goes through a coaching change, especially when they just assign kind of an interim one who's been there for a while, they tend to play well for a few weeks. I mean, they rally around the new guy. They're sort of inspired by this kind of changing of guard. It's just going to be an issue whether Chad Ashton in the long term is the solution. I think, as I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I think he deserves a shot. He obviously had them playing pretty well in 2020. You will not find one player on that squad who does not like him as a human being and a coach. So I'm pretty keen to sort of watch them from here on out.
Give me real quick. I got to get the Gareth Bale thing in. Just give me any update you have, and then also answer for me this: what is DC United like? What's the driving force of DC United as a soccer club? Like, we were trying to figure that out after Losada. I get the style of play side, but like, what do they want to be, and how are they moving toward that? And how would Gareth Bale fit into that?
Jesus Christ, like college application question or something like that. Who do you see yourself as a soccer club? The Bale thing, I mean, look, the two sides are definitely talking. It's a very real thing as far as there being interest, right? I will also say that something else that's a very real thing is that news coming out literally the day after they sat their coach. I mean, it's sort of PR 101. It's pretty glib. It doesn't mean that it's not legitimate. I just think the timing of it, it says something. Who they want to be as a club, I think, the club has always sort of had an identity crisis since it changed hands, years ago. Certainly they're still thought of by a huge segment of MLS fans as sort of the league's original dynasty and a club that should sort of seek to reclaim that spot. But I think for now, man, let's be realistic. Given ownership, I think you're going to see a side that tries to be one of these mid-level spending sides that maximizes their signings and sort of gets the most mileage out of them, and that occasionally makes a big splash. Something like Wayne, something like a Gareth Bale, some of the other players they've been connected to, Ozil, Modric, but yeah, I don't think you're going to see anytime soon DC United sort of thrust itself into the upper echelon of sort of MLS's ambition rankings, but that's just my opinion. Who knows? I would love to be surprised.
Who are the names that you would throw out there for folks as possible future head coaches? We got Chad here, and I think you're right. He does deserve an opportunity. Who else would be in that sort of group that you think they'd be interested in?
I was sort of beating the Hugo Perez drum from the beginning. I think he's a good fit for them stylistically. He obviously is a good fit for them culturally, if you look at the demographics that are at play here in DC. I think someone like Tommy McNamara probably be a natural transition. I like quasi-jokingly threw Wayne Rooney's name out there. Obviously, I think that's pretty unattainable at this point, and I think he's also already tried the DC thing, and maybe Colleen didn't like it so much. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know. Maybe they could go out and get Bielsa. They already tried, Costco Bielsa, Kirkland Bielsa, whatever. Maybe they can go get the real thing.
Hey, I'm wearing Kirkland pants right now, so you keep Kirkland out of your mouth, all right? All right. Pablo Maurer, MLSist on Twitter. Pablo, thank you for jumping on. Always a pleasure, man. Okay, let's keep it moving. Doyle is already complaining to me in the chat that we're on a track for a 3-hour show here. So Sam Stejskal on number 22, the New England Revolution, who are down at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, but somehow have teams below them in these power rankings. Sam, what's up, man? Are you shocked that the Revs are down?
That they've dropped in the power rankings?
No, not the power rankings. You know what I mean. Down, like from Shield to the opposite of Shield, basically.
Am I shocked that they are doing worse than they were last season? No, I thought they overperformed last season. I think basically everyone thought that, including perhaps Bruce Arena. Am I shocked that they are this down? Yes, I did not think they would be this bad, but I'm sure we'll talk about that more.
What did you think of the Carlos Seal yelling?
I liked it. I think it's good to have a star player that's really engaged and that really cares. Was it like the most, would Arena consider that the most professional behavior? Perhaps not. But I think also there need to be changes that haven't really happened with some of the tactics up there. And I think Carlos Seal was really frustrated in letting his coach know that. And I don't necessarily hate that, considering the rut that they've been in and considering the mistakes that they've been making. So I thought it was a good thing that he's engaged. I think it sort of puts some added onus on him to perform and try and put the team on his back a little bit more, at least in the attacking end of the field. So I liked it.
Let's talk a little bit about Josie Altidore, because the story heading into the season was, he's with Bruce, who he's played for in the past. He's going to be on a team that believes in him, and obviously he's coming off of several years of battling injuries, but they gave him this massive contract, 3-year guaranteed max TAM deal. He has one goal in 350 minutes or so across all competitions in 2 months. What direction is this heading? And is there regret coming out of New England already for this signing?
I haven't talked to anybody up there about any regrets or anything like that. So, anything I would say would be pure speculation. That being said, why don't I go ahead and do some pure speculation? I would imagine that the 3-year guarantee part of that deal is raising some eyebrows up there. It raised eyebrows around the league when it got announced.
Yeah.
Right. I know I certainly was surprised by that part of it. I think Josie, if he continues to get minutes and opportunities, I think that goal rate will go up. I think the Revs will start playing better. I don't think they're going to be on the pace they were last year, but I think they're going to improve from what they've shown so far this year. And so I have some faith in him if he stays healthy to kind of, have a little bit of an increase in terms of his production. But at the same time, considering his track record, considering his injury history, considering what he did for the last few seasons in Toronto, giving him that 3-year guarantee to me was pretty wild. I didn't understand it in the moment. I don't know, but this is what Bruce Arena did this offseason, right? It's sort of like I can't remember, I'm stealing this from someone who I was talking to, but it's sort of like the 2004 Lakers with Gary Payton and Karl Malone, right? And getting that band back together, right? Josie and Omar Gonzalez and
I mean, it's more like the 2022. It's more like the 2022 Lakers, where it's like you bring in Carmelo and Dwight Howard and Trevor Ariza, all these guys who are let's say charitably past their primes, and that really worked out great for the Lakers, and it seems to be working out the same for the Revs. And look, part of the issue with the Revs right now is they are asking more of Omar Gonzalez than he is able to give at the moment. And they have had injuries. I mean, Gustavo Bo has barely played this year. Yeah, but but it's not just that, Sam. It's the tactics. Like Bruce is throwing Matt Polster out there every week, asking him to play 1v3 in central midfield. It's insane.
And that needs to change. But having Kessler back out there, and he just got back on the field as a sub this past weekend, should help when you're putting him in for Omar Gonzalez. If they ever get Matt Turner back before he leaves for Arsenal, which who knows at this point, that will certainly help. And who knows with these new additions, right? Dylan Barrero, Georgi Petrovic, U22 signing in the midfield and a goalkeeper, respectively, or reverse that. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I got it.
They could pay dividends too, right? So they have some reinforcements on the way. But you're right, though. Like the tactics haven't really made a lot of sense. I thought the point you made in your column about them not getting pressure to the ball on the forward passes, was that what it was?
Yeah, any progressive passes, it's just awful. I think there's 20.
That's what Carlos Hill is yelling about.
That stands out. They're just making it way too easy on the opponents to build up. And then when you combine that with poor center back and goalkeeper play, bad things start to happen.
This is bigger picture, Sam, which I know we love to talk about. Then we'll let you do whatever it is you're doing on this fine Tuesday afternoon. This feels to me like a little bit of modern MLS and the entrance into the market. You have Tejan gone, you have Turner gone, you have these big pieces gone that were basically salary cap massive wins for the Revs. And the next era of MLS is when we're in it. When you're really good, other teams are going to come in and make offers. Buxa's maybe come to Besiktas is in full force right now. You're going to lose the players that made you so good. How do you replace them in this market effectively and keep it under the cap? It feels like the Revs right now, in addition to the tactics and the injuries, are sort of in the middle of that maelstrom of like, oh crap, everybody wants our players now. A lot of them are leaving. Those are the guys that made the difference, that made us a Shield team. How do we transition and do it in a way that we don't have a big dip? Right now, they're in the dip.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think the answer to that question is basically you have to plan for that years in advance. And I think the Revs, to what we talked about at the top of this, were probably a little surprised by how well they did last year. They weren't necessarily expecting to set the MLS points record. They knew they'd probably have a decent team, but that good of a team? I don't know. So maybe they weren't planning for these guys to make the jumps that they have and sell them and then need to replace them, right? That's a process that ideally you want to get started a year in advance, like Talis Magno coming in and him being cover when Castellanos gets sold, right? So I don't know that they were really ready for it. It is a tough thing to navigate. I think in the future, the best clubs in MLS, and really this is something the best clubs around the world do, will be able to reload quickly with parts that are already on their squads when they do sell those big star players that lead them to glory, like those guys you just mentioned for New England last year.
All right, Jordan, Angela, I see you down there listening. Please hit the mic and request to jump in, and we will chat. In the meantime, thank you so much, Sam, for joining us. I just want to say before you go, I still want that Russell Robinson jersey.
Listen, Weeby, this is not my fault. Don't put it on me. I didn't leave it here.
I sent you the address. I sent you
it. Get to it.
Okay. Big thanks, Sam. Appreciate you, man. Follow him on Twitter and his work at The Athletic. It's become a running joke, but I do want that. It'd be nice in my office. All right, Jordan, we're talking crew now at number 21 in these power rankings. Well, Let's down 5 spots after a scoreless draw in Kansas City. Depending on your opinion of the contact on Remy Walter, maybe they should have lost this match, but it is punchless for the Crew right now. What is the issue?
Whew. I mean, if I could solve that, Weeby, they'd probably be sitting number 1, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good question. I think all in all, that game, I don't know how many people watched that. It was a tough game in Kansas City over the weekend with the wind and the rain and all the elements. It's not going to be one that I think a lot of people want to go back and watch, but I think for all of that to get a point on the road was a good place to be for the Crew. And, I think to solve it, it's going to be a lot of maybe some changes in the front line. And there has to be production in the front line because we've watched this team over the first 8 weeks and they were, top of the league in scoring, production, scoring chances going forward, but just not able to finish anything. And now you get rid of Giassi Zardes and all that pressure now is solely on Miguel Berry. So how is this team going to score? I think that's where I look first is just trying to figure out and create some ways for them to be a little bit more clinical in the attacking third, which is not the easiest part of the field to solve.
Jordan, one of the mantras that we heard from the Crew this offseason was that they were going to address the lack of productivity from the wingers. They went out and they got Yaya Boa. He has, I believe, 1 goal and no assists, or is it no goals and 1 assist? Yeah, no goals and 1 assist all year. Derek Etienne, he's a fine rotation piece, and he's had some good moments, obviously, but he's never been an elite starting winger in this league. We know Kevin Molino is still hurt. We know Luis Diaz hasn't developed really at all. Alexander Matron is just he's a non-entity. It seems like when you talk about, addressing the issues on the front line, yes, center forward has been a problem this year, but this team, they're playing a 4-2-3-1 and they're getting nothing from the wings. And that's not sustainable. So is that going to be the area that gets targeted?
I think that it's an area that everybody watching the team and the team know that they have to get more production from those players. And it looked a little bit more like it was going to happen at the beginning, first couple of games of the season. They scored 7 goals in the first 2 games. And a lot of that did come from wing production. So I think that there was an optimistic look like this could work with the players that we got. I think Yaya Boa
that has the caps and the quicks.
Right, I know, right? Exactly. Yeah. But Yaya Boa, I think, is just having a difficult time as, I'm going to throw David Goss theorem out there. It's a difficult league to come in and create, especially going forward. It's always easier to destroy than it is to create, right? So if you're a winger and you're trying to beat a back line, I feel like there are times where he just looks like he's kind of stuck in his thought process and is not quite sure what the next move is. So will that get better as he's maybe seen these teams one time and then the second time he meets them, he kind of knows what's up? I think yes, but I don't know if the Crew have all that time to be able to wait, right? So this is a wild thought that I've had, and I think that this team could potentially play in a 3-4-3, which would be so different for Caleb Porter. But Will Sands has the potential to be a good wingback in this league. And then it maybe takes Pedro Santos and puts him back on the wing, gets him higher on the field. And you have kind of 2 players that on that left side that could play defensively a little bit closer to each other. It might float Lucas Del Rayon as a number 10 that can drift out to the wing at times. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of ways that you can get your most productive players going forward on the field. And that is something that I've thought about just with the players that the Crew has.
Go ahead.
Let me just ask this. Do you get the sense that the seats are getting warm in Columbus? This is the 4th or 5th year for Caleb Porter. Tim Bezpachenko's been around as well. Is it that type of pressure that they're looking at, or is it just we're off to a slow, disappointing start type of pressure?
I don't feel that pressure within the club. I think, the fans are always going to put that type of pressure on a team, and this fan base is amazing, right? Because they have been invested for so long and they saved this team, so they're always going to have their opinion. And I do feel like those opinions have been stated over the last week, especially with that Open Cup loss. But I don't feel that pressure within the club at all, just from my point of view.
All right, give me an idea of what this open DP spot might mean for the Crew this summer, and why it was time to move on from Giassi.
I think this team and bringing in, Giassi was here before the team brought in Lucas Celerayán, and I'm not saying that those two didn't work well together, because they did, but I think that when you're watching the Crew over the last probably 8 months, you're recognizing that Lucas needs a little bit more help, and he needs someone that he can rely on game in and game out. And so I think that was just, from my point of view, how can you go and find a player that maybe is that connecting piece that Miguel Berry adds a little bit for Lucas Celerayán, will come into the midfield and be that connector for and with Lucas, but also is just an outright lethal finisher in the box. So those are kind of the profiles of a player that I would want to see come into this team. But I think a lot of that relies on how would he work with Lucas, and how is that communication? Because you want to bring in a DP that if it comes in the summer, if this person comes in the summer, that you want to make sure that right off the bat that those two are clicking. So I think a lot of that has to do with how he could potentially work with Lucas.
Navigating some David Goss theorem on multiple fronts in Columbus. 21st in these power rankings, down 5 spots. Always enjoy talking to you, Jordan. Thanks for joining us. All right. Keep it going. Chris Whittingham, who's at lunch and has made time in his busy Miami schedule to fit us in. What's up, Chris?
How you doing, Andrew? I'm actually at the South Point Park at the very southern tip of South Beach. So I'm enjoying a nice lunch and good to talk to you guys.
Tough life right there.
Yeah.
Genuinely wonderful.
I'm sure there's an ocean view here. I don't know. We can't huddle physically, but I guess we are literally here. We can't say F-bombs when we record, but otherwise, wow. Well, the children listening, perhaps. I don't know. Man, this was a team that we were bagging on hard, and there may still be reason to down the road here. But 4 straight wins in all comps for Inter Miami. They look like they care about each other. They look like they care about playing an 11-man game. It looks like a different team. What happened?
Well, there is a turning point, and it's when Guaiguan picked up an injury in training, and there's been a lot of movement around it. And I think there was a recognition that everyone needed to accept their own responsibility. And Phil Neville mentioned, hey, maybe things are different in terms of accepting responsibility when the DP player is not there to kind of take all the blame of, oh, look at him, he's not doing enough. Everyone needed to do more. There needed to be more resoluteness in defense. There needed to be a greater idea. At the very least, what we're starting to see now in Miami is what a lot of teams in MLS take advantage of, and that's transition opportunities. And I think Campana, who's done a really good job, not in terms of what he can afford to improve him, but his technical quality on the ball is fairly remarkable for a player of his size and his strength. And so he gets on the ball and is able to hold it up and then build out into moments where they can actually hit with pace. That's, for me, one of the biggest things that's been lacking with Inter Miami for a while is the ability to hit with pace. And you look at that right flank in particular, Ari Lassiter and DeAndre Yedlin are 2 of the fastest players in the league. And so you're able to get forward into transition moments. And the more of those they have, the more of those that they can be clinical with. And I think you saw at the weekend, there was a couple that they were clinical with. And when they've scored goals, it's been in transition. So they have a way of getting into goal dangerous opportunities now, which has probably been the thing that's been most frustrating, even though it's been the defense that's been something they've needed to sort out. They're getting into goal dangerous situations, and now they're pairing it with being fairly resolute defensively, albeit they gave away probably a few too many chances at the weekend to Atlanta.
Chris, before I go any further, I don't know how you are when you're on the phone, but if you're pacing, stop pacing right now, because you found a vein of reception in the last 30 seconds that has been very valuable to us. Can I ask you whether do you think it should have been a penalty on Noah Allen?
I do. I think it's a committed challenge. By the way, I'm sitting on a park bench, so I've not moved at all since we.
Oh God, technology!
Shoo the flock of seagulls away from over your head because they're cutting into your reception.
My apologies. So I do think that it was a penalty. We talked about it. We thought that once the referee went to the screen that it was going to be a penalty, but you know, it was a nice surprise, I suppose, when he emerges. I thought in general, the one argument you can make for it is that it was in keeping with the way that the game was officiated. It was a game that there was a lot of play on. There's a lot of moments where you're waiting for the whistle to go and it didn't go. So, I mean, all players asked for is consistency, and consistency we got. So I do think, if you ask me, I thought that was a penalty, but I also thought that there were challenges from both teams that went uncalled. So at the very least, it was a tenor set by Haida Marufo. But yeah, for me, it should have been a penalty to Atlanta and a chance for them to equalize.
All right, so let's now address the elephant in the room. This team has been playing much better soccer. It's not great, but it's much better soccer in this 4-2-3-1, kind of maybe more of a 4-3-3. Campana up top alone as a number 9. That's Gonzalo Higuain's spot. What happens when Higuain is healthy? Is he just a super sub now? Is that just how it's going to end for him in Miami? Because you can't change things up when Campana is playing like this and when the team is unbeaten in 4.
I mean, I guess they can kick the can down the road on this one, because it was revealed today that he picked up a quad contusion on that last challenge that came in from Atlanta that saw him be on the ground for a little bit and looked fairly ginger walking off the pitch. So, you know, there's a chance that maybe that decision gets pushed off. But, I mean, I guess for the interim while he comes back from injury, but I cannot foresee for a lengthy period of time Higuain being a sub. I just don't. I just think he's too important of a figure at the club. Obviously, you know, one of the highest paid players in the league. Not that you make decisions based off salary, but it's fairly hard to imagine, in my estimation, that he does not have a sizable role left to play. Now, that's a decision that's going to be tough to figure out, because, like you said, you're not taking Campana off in the form that he is in. Do you go back to playing 2 strikers? Does that mean going back to 3-5-2? We have seen Miami in the second half of the game against Atlanta, the game against New England, even the game against Seattle away from home. They did eventually move to a back 5 and a 2-striker system. So it's not like they are out of rhythm with playing that system, but I don't know. I think that's a real decision for Phil Neville to make, because, you know, the next 2 games for Inter Miami are on turf, so there's that factor as well. But I genuinely don't know. I'm really fascinated to see how Phil Neville handles the situation, because I think he recognizes that Higuain has a role to play, but I don't know how you execute it, given that Campana is not just scoring, because I actually think, you know, he got a secondary assist against Seattle, but I thought that some of the movements that he put in, it was like, this is a new Campana. We have not seen the player be this technical, be able to be the outlet in transition moments and allow Inter Miami to get up the pitch. So those are the moments where I think he has proven his value, even more so at times than his goal scoring. So I don't know how you make that decision and take a player out that's in this good of form.
Well, we would love to sit here and talk to you about Inter Miami and Phil Neville for a very, very long time, Chris. I know you're in a more beautiful place than I am as I stare at 4 walls in my basement. We're going to let you go. We will have you back on very, very soon. You can listen to him on Twitter, and you can listen to him on the radio for Inter Miami. And, of course, he's a producer at the Le Batard Show. Chris Whittingham, thank you, man.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Doyle.
All right, let's keep it rolling. Brian, I see you. I'm inviting you to speak. Please also request and jump in here to talk Chicago Fire at number 17. Yeah, look, goal scoring is an issue for the Chicago Fire. They're down 4 spots to 17 in these power rankings, and that is on the back of a 3-0 loss in Minnesota. We'll talk about Minnesota here in just a little bit. Brian, what is Ezra saying these days about the attack and how perhaps they could generate literally anything?
Well, to be honest, he's basically saying that it's going to come, it's going to arrive, but they have to be more clinical. They have to be better at the chances they are generating. And he hasn't used the absence of Shaqiri as an excuse. He says they just have to be better with what they've got. But still waiting for that to happen.
Well, from your point of view, what exactly are they missing, right? Aside from, you know, final third quality, but is it that they're very slow progressing from the back into the attack? Is it that they don't have the types of variation in the runs that they need from their wingers? Are they not threatening in behind the back line? Is a little bit of all of the above?
It's all the above. And frankly, like, to me, first of all, they don't have much width. to be honest. Their two wingers generally haven't provided much on from the flanks. They've started Fabian Herbers when he's healthy. He's a really good player, a nice professional, but he's not going to threaten you. And then, Shaqiri, I think, has been fine. I don't know if he's been great. He's been okay when he's been healthy. He was a little rusty against Minnesota, but he was okay. And then Shabilko. He hasn't had a ton of chances, but he's got to be better with the chances he's got. I know that everyone's going to look at the chance against the Galaxy, the 2-0, the 3-0, when he got nothing out of it. Maybe that's a little unfair to him, but he's just got to be better. They need pace. They need a little bit more creativity. And they play with such a defensive mindset that I feel like sometimes it's hard for them to transition into the attack. So other than that, their offense is doing great.
5 goals in 8 games. They've been shut out 6 times. We know what the obvious is, but there is still progress here, Brian. I know the fans can get a little impatient in times like these, especially given the history that they have, at least, not even recent history at this point, medium to long-term history for the Fire. What are the positives for Ezra, and how do they progress from here? Are they in line with your expectations?
They're right about in line. I didn't expect them to be this strong defensively with this much discipline. I mean, Rafael Chihos has been one of the best signings of the offseason for any team. He's their best center back probably since Arne Friedrich, and that was a long time ago. He has really raised the level of that back line. Wyatt Omsberg, I think, is a decent professional, but he's made Omsberg look really good. Miguel Navarro, I think, has taken a leap forward at left back. Sekulic is still solid at right back. And I don't want to get caught in the discourse about this player. We could do it for hours. The role he's been asked to play, Gaston Jimenez, has been very good. Now, whether a defensive midfielder is worth the designated player spot, we could talk about that for years. But the role he's being asked to play, he's been pretty good. So there are some positives, but I just don't know if they have enough going forward to make anything out of those positives.
Difficult times for the Fire. Let me ask you, Brian, where are you, man? It sounds like you're whispering in a corner.
Oh, no, I'm just in an office building right now.
Oh, okay. Making sure you don't. There we go. Not disrupting. In order for us to get through in an hour, we'll see if we can. But it was great to talk to you, Brian. We're going to keep it rolling here. No, it's all good, man. Appreciate you. All right, Marcelo, you're up for the Rapids. Go ahead and request, and we will talk Gyasi Zardes and the blockbuster trade from this last week. $300,000, say the Rapids, in guaranteed allocation money for Gyasi Zardes, up to $1.4 million, say the Columbus Crew. You see the two different sides there. There are some performance metrics that could be reached, as well as a long-term contract that could be had for Gyasi that could change that number. Marcelo, what does Gyasi bring to the Rapids? Is this the right move?
Well, first, let me say I'm sitting on a deck in my backyard where it's 60 degrees and I can see the Rocky Mountains. So just so you know.
Yeah, well, I have drywall, so I'm not gonna be able to measure up to that. It's a good life out there. Gyasi gets to live a good life in Colorado.
He does. You know what? This is a 9 we needed. Despite what some people think, the profile that we needed as a forward is a guy that's going to defend, that's going to help defend, that can get into the box, that can win balls. And Jazzy has everything that would fit into what Robin and how Robin wants to play. So to be honest, this past weekend, you saw a 5-3-2, a little bit different than you normally see. I think eventually you'll see a Rubio and a Gyasi Zardes as the two center forwards, which are identical. They'll both chase, they'll both defend, they'll both get in the box. So I think it's a great fit for Colorado.
So they're identical, but they're also a little bit different, right? Because Rubio loves to drop off and become a playmaker, whereas we know Gyasi, like he wants to battle those center backs. He wants to push the line forward. He wants to get in the box for those one-touch finishes.
Which is perfect. Which is absolutely perfect for Colorado because you need a pure 9 and a false 9, right? And when you see that false 9, that's going to be Rubio dropping back, picking the ball up, and Jazzy is going to keep the two center backs occupied.
So one of the things that our guy Kalen Carr always talks about on Extra Time is how a good striker partnership between two guys like that is just so hard to defend against. But you don't see it a lot anymore because so many teams, prefer to play with the front three or some, sort of a different looking combination. When you were playing in the 90s and the aughts during the heyday of kind of the 3-5-2 and the 4-4-2, you had to go against that all the time. So what should fans be looking at in terms of how that striker partnership is going to work?
Well, I think it's going to look similar to what we see now in Colorado. You're still going to see the two wingbacks get into the attack. So they're going to be taking the spaces on the outside of the back four. Jazzy is going to be planted in front of the two center backs in there. So that leaves a gap, right? There leaves a gap between the left center back and the left back. That's where you're going to see Rubio slide in between. Rubio is going to have a little bit of freedom to be able to pick and choose on what side of Jazzy he can penetrate and get in behind. And I think that's going to be key because you have to take a little bit of pressure off Zardes. New team, big-time DP for the first time Colorado. We've got a 9. So I think Rubio may actually flourish a little bit more now because he's not going to be the focal point at this point where you're looking at the 2 9s.
It's interesting to me, Marcelo, that we've got Colorado up 4 spots to 14, and it feels a little bit like that's just on the back of Giassi because they haven't won a game in 5. Is that okay, or are there warning signs there?
Here's the deal. If we were at the end of the season and this were the last 6 or 7 games and we haven't won, I'd be very worried towards the end of the season. At the beginning of the season, you know what? We've got a lot of new moving parts. Viacia got his first start the other day in the back. Jack Price is out. We lost Cole Bassett. You lost 10 goals. Think about it. Between Cole Bassett and Baji, you lost 10 goals. So you've got to find a way to make up those 10 goals. And that's why Jazzy gets brought in. I'm not concerned. I got to be honest. I'll be honest. This last game I was concerned because they registered no shots on target. And the last time they did that was 2018 against RSL. So when you have that happen, it is a little concerning, but again, this is a team that we know what they can do. We know they can go forward. It's just a matter of time before it clicks.
Over under finish of the season in your opinion? Giassi Zardes, 9.5 goals. Colorado Rapids 4.5 place in the West. What do you think?
I'm gonna go 10 goals for Jazzy, over 10.
Squeak the
over 10, and the same with Rubio, over 10. And I agree. I think I said right around 5th or 6th, so we're close.
Okay, that would be in the playoffs. Big thanks, Marcelo, for joining us.
Anytime, guys. I'm going to go enjoy the sun.
Enjoy that view.
Go enjoy the sun. Awesome. All right. That is the Colorado Rapids 14. Here's your top 10 in case you were curious as we enter the top 10. 3 guests to come. Kendra de St. Aubin will join us on Minnesota, who are up 4 spots to 10. Nashville at 9, about to open a new stadium. Ben Wright is on the way for us. Dallas, Austin, New York City round out the 5 before the top 5, and then Seattle. New York, LA, Philly, and LAFC are at the very, very top. Seattle, we'll talk to Alexi about the CCL final. Let's go to Minnesota. And Kendra, if you are there, Kendra, go ahead and request. I see you. Hit that little mic on the bottom left-hand corner. I also just sent you a request to come in. Reynoso is back. Emmanuel Reynoso. There were some question marks, but he is back fully in form, and that's a good thing for the Loons, Kendra. That means that they're going to be playing at the top of their powers generally, and they're going to be winning soccer games.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot was made last week of his wife and his daughter coming into the United States. I think that makes a big difference, and we all kind of treat athletes sometimes as robots, but I think we all know that they're human beings. And he had a lot going on in the off season over in Argentina, and then to have his wife and his daughter here, I think it's just a whole different animal when you have someone to go home to at night. And there's just an energy about him when he played in this game against Chicago Fire. And of course, scoring goals, getting assists, and not just coming from the penalty spot make a massive difference. But there's just a different energy and joy about him, even at training every day. I just came from there earlier today. The sun is shining here, but it's only 36 degrees with a nice breeze. I don't have the Miami vibe or the Marcelo Balboa vibe, but it's good enough that the sun is out for the second time in 3 months, so I'll take it.
But Kendra, August in the Twin Cities for the All-Star game. That is some good weather right there. That's what you live for.
That is like prime, but I can't. I know you guys were real down on the U.S. men's national team game here in February, which I saw Marcelo at as well. But I was living that life. February 2nd was there as a fan, and I enjoyed every second of it. I don't know about the players, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Kendra, the players are absolutely enjoying things right now for Minnesota. 6 goals in the last 2 games. I think they only had 5 goals for the entire season before this stretch. Reynosa's clicking, and that is the most important thing. But still massive question marks at the number 9. Like it was Robin Lod this weekend. We haven't seen a goal out of either of the DP center forwards on the roster. Adrian Huneau, I think, is beaten up on children with the MLS Next Pro team. What is going on? Is there an answer for the center forward for this team?
We can all agree that finding your go-to number 9 is difficult. I mean, we just heard Marcelo talk about bringing in Jassy Zardes and Diego Rubio playing that role. And that's why they usually get paid the big bucks, is because that's the hardest thing to do in soccer, is score goals. So I think we can all agree on that. I think Amaria is struggling a little bit right now. He scored 2 goals earlier in the season, but I actually thought him and Reynoso would jive a little bit better than what I've seen as far as how they would play together. And I've seen it in training every day where, if they need to, they send a long ball up to midfield, and Luis Amaria one times it back to Reynoso, and Reynoso can go out wide. And then Luis Amaria can peel around and find his space in the box, which is where he's most successful. I mean, he needs service. And we've talked about other players that need service. And if they're not getting the service that they need, they tend to try to go and try to find the game. And so where is that game for Luis Amaria? Well, you take Amaria off the field, you put Robin Lod centrally, and it's amazing sometimes that energy and that chemistry that Reynoso and Lod have together. And some of that comes from spending more time playing together. I mean, they had all of last year and some of the year before that, and that was before and when Molino was here too. So I think some of it could just take time, but it's also a different style. Whether you have Robin Lod centrally or you have Amaria, it gives you options. And so I think if Luis is even creating, let's say he gets the second assist, not the first assist, and he's not the scoring goals, then will he be happy? Will he, have a smile on his face? Will he continue to sort of thrive in those situations? I think so, because he seems like a good guy and a good teammate. But yeah, of course you want your DP number 9 to be scoring goals. That is like the ultimate goal. And we could talk about Adrien Anu as well. That's another situation where, where you need to play him to be successful as a team and for himself wasn't as a, number 9, like a post-up number 9 up top. That's just not his role. So, I mean, Robin is just money. Emmanuel Reynoso and him have a fantastic chemistry. And I love seeing Juan Wade, on that left-hand side. He's just got an energy about him, and I think there's some chemistry developing there as well when he steps on the pitch.
Kendra, let's finish with something that's not so positive. It's a bummer to see Hassani Dotson go down with this knee injury and be out long term, and it's a tough one for Minnesota to swallow as well, given his importance to the squad, whether it be in central midfield and filling in really all over the park at times. How do they solve this? Do they have to go find another player? Do they do it from within the team? What changes with Hassani out?
Well, I think the benefit to Minnesota United is that they have – I don't know if we would have gone into the year thinking we had depth in the outside back position, but DJ Taylor is more than capable. O'Neal Fisher can play on either side. They went and got Kamar Lawrence for the left, so you could move Dabasi back centrally. I mean, clearly Hassani Dotson didn't want it. I mean, that's not his ideal position, playing right back, but he's the kind of guy that will do anything that is asked of him and do it well. I think O'Neal Fisher did well there the other day. So I think that it's still a position of need for Minnesota. I mean, Metzanier has been out most of the season, and he left last year in the playoff game, as we all saw, with that hamstring injury. He's, 34 years old, so I'm not sure how quickly he'll come back and be available to this club, or how much he'll be able to stay healthy. But yeah, a massive bummer for Hassani, because he's just made strides every single year and, kind of finding his groove, finding his form. And he's been a true teammate playing anywhere that's asked. And, fortunately for Minnesota also, they have Arriaga to get that depth in the midfield. You have Ja'Cory Hayes, you have Joseph Rosales, you have all these players that can step in that holding midfield role that allowed Hassani to play right back. But yeah, now they've got to find an option there or some consistency in that right back position, which, to your point, Weeby, about finding some consistency in the outside backs and who's going to play there. Emmanuel Reynoso said that last week. Why has he struggled to kind of find some of his form and find his groove? The rotating outside backs are, outside backs and fullbacks are so important to the system going forward and joining in the attack and starting the attack. The fact that there's been so much movement there has maybe stinted his success in the middle a little bit. So now if you can find 2 consistent outside backs that can stay healthy, I think that'll the healthy attack as well.
2 straight wins for Minnesota, up 4 spots into the top 10 of these power rankings at LAFC on the weekend. That's a big game. That's true. No, you're right. You're right. As a U.S. Open Cup lover, I'm just staring at the forum guide at MLSsoccer.com. So, the information was poor on my point of view. At LAFC, that's a big game, though, Kinder. Big thanks for you joining us. Always great to chat soccer with you. All right, big weekend for Nashville. Judas Park, all caps, opening. Down 4 spots, which it feels harsh to a late winner in LA. Ben Wright is with us from Speedway Soccer and MLSsoccer.com. Ben, what's up, man? Let's start with the stadium. You've been inside it. Paint a picture for me.
Hey, guys. First of all, the stadium just feels absolutely massive. Everybody knows it's 30,000 seats, just the biggest soccer-specific stadium in the U.S. or Canada. But, it's just really hard to describe how big it feels until you're there at field level. And, man, the stands are just right on top of you. It's going to be something special on Sunday.
How much is it occupying sort of local attention? Like take us inside the city. How big a deal is this, and how can it change Nashville, the club?
Well, yeah, it's going to be sold out for at least the first several matches. They're pushing 22,000 season ticket holders, and they've sold out of single game tickets for Sunday and for several other games after that. Within Nashville, it feels like a big deal. Obviously, they're always going to be competing with the Tennessee Titans locally. And the NFL draft is also this weekend. So I think just in a sports media perspective, I think those two are going to be going head to head. But it's certainly local.
And we assume that you'll be there. Is 100%. So is the thing to do for Nashville SC to actually get on the ball and attack a little bit? Because the past couple of weeks, it was a long 8-game trip for this team. They did well. They took 11 points out of this. It could have been more because they had late breakdowns. Each of the last 2 weeks turn a win into a draw and turn a draw into a loss. You can't 1-0 yourself to through an entire schedule. So is this opening of the new home, is this going to open a new era in how this team actually plays? Because it has not been fun to watch for a neutral over the past 2 months, Ben.
I think they hope it does. I know Gary Smith has talked about wanting to play in a way that's not so hard to switch from. He said they don't want to completely park the bus on the road trip and then have to all of a sudden just flip a switch and be like the proactive team. It hasn't been pretty to watch at times on the road trip, but I would argue that they've been more proactive than they have in the past. Games against Salt Lake, San Jose was just kind of a mess, as it is when you play San Jose. Even Sporting Kansas City, I think. Obviously, those 3 opponents aren't necessarily the strongest that Nashville played, but that's way more open than they've ever been on the road in the past, which, granted, is not necessarily a high bar. But I think they're hoping that they can be more proactive once they get home, and I think there have been kind of glimpses of that on the road so far.
All right, so tell us about those glimpses of it, because it's been, for those of you who haven't followed it, it started off in a 4-4-2 diamond for Nashville this year. It was basically 3 D-mids in there. Eventually switched out of that into more of a 3-5-2 or a 3-5-1-1. The wing backs are still getting really high. Rendell Leal has actually been pretty nice. I think he's improved a bit as a playmaker, but he's still not exactly a magician pulling the strings in midfield. To me, though, it still all comes down to Hani Mukhtar. So are you seeing more than that? Like what exactly are the glimpses?
Ben, before we let you go, what's your favorite spot in the new stadium? I saw you play guitar. You can get up there, right? You dabble. Come on, you dabble. You dabble. Ben Ryder, Speedway Soccer. Follow his coverage and his alternative power rankings. Nashville up to 9, down 4 spots. Thanks for your time, Ben. All right, and we end it here with the Seattle Sounders. What on earth could we possibly be talking about with Alexi Lawless? Go ahead and request to speak, Alexi. I see you right there. I just sent you an invite. Oh, it would be the CONCACAF Champions League final, the first leg going down 10:30 p.m. Eastern, FS1, 2 on Wednesday. Live watch along on the MLS YouTube page. All the extra time guys from Mondays. Kaylin, David, Doyle, and myself will be there to experience it with you. And then Dave and I will be going to Seattle for the second leg. Is history going to be made, Alexi?
Yeah, it's going to be made, Weeby. Yeah, definitely. Hey, hold on. Can I just point of order and everything here? My friend in hair and cracking people on the back line, Marcelo Balboa, I love him, but did he just come up with a completely new way to pronounce Gyasi Zardes?
I felt I thought I was taking crazy pills, Alexi.
What the flying F are we doing? Hello. It's not DJ Jazzy Jeff that's playing here, okay? You realize this is Gyasi Zardes. It's always been Gyasi. Nobody's ever changed it. It's never been a problematic word for anybody to pronounce other than my long-haired friend over there. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. All right, yeah, this is going to be history.
Gyasi Zardes. Gyasi Zardes.
I kind of like Jazzy as a nickname.
Hey, listen, he went with it.
He starts putting a little.
He's going with it.
He starts putting a little style on it, like a little improvisation, which we don't always see from Gyasi. But I can see some Jazzy from him.
Amazing.
I don't know.
Amazing. Yeah, this is going to be history. This is in the. Don't worry, it's done. It's fait accompli. Don't you worry about it.
Oh God. Just stop trolling us here. Hey, but it does help that Doneto is out. That's big.
Yeah, they got Doneto and Lopez out. Ortiz is injured. So I mean, I mean, this was already a. Let's be honest, all right. It's a mid to low level type of team in Liga MX. It doesn't mean that Seattle or any other team out there can't lose to them. But in the past, there have been pathways and things have aligned for MLS to win this thing, and I'm an MLS team to win this. It hasn't happened for a number of different reasons, and this is only more, right? So I think that this Seattle team has more experience. I think that this Seattle team has more talent, more depth. First game is away, second game is home, and I do think that that's an advantage. They've beaten Lyon, so they've already beaten Liga MX and comparable Liga MX teams in this tournament. They saw New England play Pumas, and although it didn't go well for New England, you can bet that Schmetzer's talking to Arena to figure out that. So, yeah, I mean, it's all set up, and I think it would be absolutely a failure. And while we've had failures in the past, this would be a mega failure.
So in order to avoid that mega failure, the number one thing that Seattle have to do in this game is what? And don't say score more goals than Pumas. Like the terms, is it like I will say my thing is it's throw tactics out the window, and I know I can't believe I'm saying that, but like they just have to go out there and match or exceed the intensity of the team they're playing against, and that's not always a given for MLS teams in CCL.
It's not always a given, and you need a little luck, and you need to kind of be on the front foot in the way that, let's say, Manchester City just jumps out after 1 minute and 45 seconds here against Real Madrid and scores a goal. That would be certainly nice, but obviously they're playing on the road. I think it's also a mentality. I talked about the maturity of this Seattle team. You're going into Mexico City, which is never easy, regardless of who you're playing. But I think that there has to be a recognition that they can win this almost in this first game. And it doesn't mean that they have to score a lot of goals, but I think it's there for them to much more be on the front foot as opposed to just absorbing pressure and kind of getting out there and limiting the damage out there. I don't think that from a mentality perspective, that is the way to go. Now, we have seen this team, even this past weekend, which is, pretty much everybody on the field. You got Rui Diaz, you got Morris, you got Lodero, you got both of the Roldans, you got Rusnik, you got Gianpaolo. The list goes on and on. We've seen this team out there from an MLS perspective not do so well, and even Stephen Fry having, a dorking out in that moment there. And it's almost as if they're getting out all their problems in MLS and then obviously putting all of their eggs in the basket of CCL. And they've played very well in CCL. So we hope that the CCL 2020-2022 version of Seattle shows up in both of these games.
If
burning
they do,
sage. They're burning sage right now. They're just like trying to cleanse the
Burning Sage
area.
Burning Sage didn't work for Kyrie, man. I don't think we want to talk about Burning Sage as the right approach. But do you think that this team, if they do get it done, it feels to me like it feels to me like the Seattle Sounders, after what they've done since 2009, there would be something poetic about them being the first MLS team up the top of the mountain.
As insufferable as the folks up there in Seattle are, and they are, and it's okay. They own it. I love them, and I love making fun of them. If Seattle was the first team in the modern form of CCL to plant that flag, and this is that race to the moon, right? I think while those of us outside would say, "Oh, it's Seattle again," and you're just going to become even more insufferable, I think when we were honest with ourselves, if somebody is going to do it, because you guys know, you follow this league, the most difficult thing in this league is to have consistent success, right? Because of the way it's set up, the manufactured parity. And yet Brian Schmetzer and this organization, year after year, even though they change personnel, even though the league changes, even though people adapt to them, they find a way to be consistently good. And so all in all, as much as they are insufferable, it would be fine with me if they were able to check that box. And let's just get it checked so we can move on.
Yeah, let's check it, and then somebody else check it, so then we don't have to hear just them. And then, give me at least dueling banjos for the superiority complex. That's what I need. We need to start collecting these.
Wow, we haven't even gotten one yet. Weeby's already asking for two. Good Lord.
Yeah, I'm just a banjo.
There's only one. There's only one first, so it's gonna be fun. And now, correct me if I'm wrong. I should probably know this, but they told me the other day that the away goals rule does not count in this last home and away.
Yeah, I don't. On Kathy, they changed the rules midway through.
Well, actually, and the other thing that hasn't been publicized yet, but the video assistant referees all have to watch the monitors through a kaleidoscope. So that's the. Sorry,
I mean, that's how you and Charlie do it on instant replay. Weeby, so come on,
yeah, there are some takes I regret from this week. I will go ahead and say that I've had some buyer's remorse, so to speak.
Alexi, wait, I got one for you, Alexi. So if the Sounders fans. If the Sounders get this done and the fans do become too obnoxious, you could always let them know that there's an asterisk for this one, because no Tigres, no Monterrey, no Club America in this one, no Chivas. Like the big hitters weren't a part of this CCL. So you keep that asterisk handy if they come at you a little too hard.
Hey, listen, you never put it past the Seattle folks to have those emerald-colored glasses up there. So, they're not going to listen to anything I say, or you.
You got to have that in your back pocket, though. Okay, last question, just for fun. Who's the best player in MLS right now?
The best player in MLS?
Yeah. You can define that however you want, but that's somebody says you're on the stand, you put your hand on whatever good book you swear on. Who's the best player in MLS right now?
Oh, man. Let's see. I like. Let me give you something random, something ridiculous. How about Driussi? Driussi.
It's not too ridiculous, man. I think he's going to top the MVP poll that we put out tomorrow, right? Like he's been really, really good, like really, really good for that team. But they've been getting a lot of bonus games, right, Andrew?
Yeah, well, it'd be a bonus plot it for them. How about this? Who's the best team in MLS, Alexi?
The best team in MLS by numbers would be LAFC, and I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I mean, obviously, I would have Seattle much higher, and like I said, they've put all this focus on it. But yeah, I'm good with the numbers not lying in this case.
Okay, Driussi, LAFC, and this is the final one. The most interesting story in the entire league, in your opinion, now. What the team that you're most you have to watch for whatever reason?
No, just ask the question. Just ask the question, maybe. The most interesting story.
The most interesting story, I think, is what we're going to see this weekend with the opening in Nashville. Right? It's this weekend, right? Yeah, because we've all lived through the 2.0 of Stadia. Right, and where it's the 20,000 range and stuff like that, and this is a whole nother level. and what it means, not just to Nashville, what it means going forward with stadiums and, that kind of stuff. I think that will be really, really interesting to me, because I toured it before the grass was down, and it was amazing. And they got to have all these different rooms where you can see concerts. And even when the stadium doesn't have a game, you can actually go there and, kind of like a House of Blues type of thing. Where you can actually go see music, and we all know how important music is there. So I'm really interested to see something like that. I'm sure there'll be plenty as we go along. And listen, if in these next 2 Wednesdays Seattle were to finally plant that flag, that would be a huge story. So here's to all the things that are happening. Here's to an MLS team, in this case Seattle, planting that flag so we can move along. And of course.
And that concludes this power ranking show for week 8. Andrew Wiebe, Matt Doyle, an absolute cavalcade of wonderful guests who make this a really fun Tuesday afternoon for all of us. I hope you enjoyed it. We're live on Twitter Spaces at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we're also on demand on the MLS Today podcast feed. Big thanks to everybody who joined the show. Big thanks to you, Doyle, as well as our producers, Rich Hernandez and Phil Levanco. We are out of here, everybody. Tomorrow night, CCL final, first leg in Mexico, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. FS1, 2 a.m. live watch-along show on the MLS YouTube page. Come join us. We will be at the final, and ETR will be there on Monday to help you preview it. We're out of here. Enjoy your Tuesday. Adios.